Welcome to Soul Snacking with Dr. Mary Amore. I'm Dr. Mary, and I'm here with my co-host Alice Smith, and we are delighted to welcome you to a new episode sponsored by Mayslake Ministries of Downers Grove. Let me tell you a little bit about Mayslake Ministries. Mayslake Ministries is a nonprofit ministry whose mission is to engage Catholics in a modern world. And we do this through a wide variety of avenues, including individual spiritual direction and counseling, weekend retreats, adult enrichment programs, inspiring blogs and videos, books, and television shows. Mayslake Ministries is also the only organization in the Midwest to offer free spiritual outreach to our military men and women who suffer from PTSD, the hidden and moral wounds of war. Over the years, we have helped hundreds of soldiers begin their spiritual process to healing and wholeness. Some of our other specialized programs include a caregiver's ministry, a marriage enrichment program for couples, and a mom's ministry. Our programs are relevant to the ever-changing needs of today's believer. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, Mayslake Ministries has a program or service to help you. All people are welcome at Mayslake Ministries. For more information on our wide range of programs and services, I invite you to visit our website at mayslakeministries.org and follow us on Facebook to see the many ways that we can assist you on your walk with Christ. It is my hope that this TV show, Soul Snacking, will serve up some delicious and nourishing ways to feed your hungry spirit. We've got a great show for you today, for we are going to discuss the joys and challenges of caregiving for a family member. To help us in our conversation, we are delighted to welcome Deb Kelsey-Davis, our Mayslake Ministries caregiving affiliate and founder of Soul to Soul Solutions, and Nanci Smith, wife, mom, and DRE at a local suburban parish. Welcome, Deb and Nanci.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And welcome,
here.
Alice.
Oh, you're so
goodness. So,
yeah, love
you
being
know,
here.
Caregiving is so important at Mayslake Ministries, but in the life of everybody. And you know, we've had shows about when caregiving happens, you know, the rug is pulled off from under you, and all of a sudden you have to assume the role of a caregiver. But Nanci, your story's a little different. You were caring for your grandma,
Right.
who you knew it was a progressive illness. Why don't you share a little bit about the struggles and joys of caring for grandma?
Okay. Well, in 2005, my grandmother had come back to Chicago. She had lived in Las Vegas for some time, and it was very clear that she wanted to be with family, and it was very clear that God had put me in her heart to help take care of her. So for a good while, she did very well, but about 2012, we started to see a decline in her health, and she had a number of different strokes, and she had moved from the from the assisted living facility to the nursing home.
Okay.
And so during that time, the amount of care that I needed to give her was, it was intensifying.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there were wonderful joys in it, because I was able to go through her apartment and to go through some of the old things that we weren't able to talk about together.
Right.
And then there were struggles, because, you know, you have to remember that this is a person that you're physically caring for, and it could be a little bit of a challenge.
Right, exactly.
And now this was your mom.
This was my
grandma.
This is my paternal
your
grandmother, my
grandmother.
father's mother.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a special heart you have to do that, seriously.
Yeah.
And so were you were raising your family at that time?
Yes, of course, and I'm still raising my family. We have, my husband and I have 5 children,
Oh, God
3
bless you.
in our 20s, and then
Okay.
we have 2 that are still young. We have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. So during all of this, it was quite the challenge to be balancing all of the things that were going on. We had weddings going on, we
Sure.
had school going on, my school going on. So there's a whole
Sports, the children's activities.
all kinds of
Yeah,
things. And
definitely.
It was a crazy time, and then there was time to work with grandma.
How did you find peace in all of that? Your serenity.
You know what? You have to carve out time out of your day, and no matter how hard it is, you have to be able to say, I just need 5-10 minutes alone. A majority of the time, that 5 or 10 minutes was hiding someplace in the house, just for 5 or 10
Sure.
minutes.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
but that's where I
Uh-huh.
had to go to be able to bring myself back to it. So.
And you know, as caregiving goes, oftentimes because you have so much to do, our prayer lives sometimes begin to shift.
Yes.
They look different, they sound different, and even the times of day that we pray. I know that for myself personally, in the midst of caregiving, my prayers just, they became very, very different. I tended to pray more for just, please help me and guide me. How about you? What happened with you?
That's exactly right. And so I think that as a human, you want to try to control situations. You want to have control over what's happening. But the reality is that there is no control over it.
Right.
And so you end up kind of rethinking the way that you think, if that makes any sense. And that is, you have to put yourself in a new perspective. And if you make that surrender to God to ask Him for help, then you've got to leave it with Him there, and you can't. And you need to realign your prayers, your prayer life, to say, "Hey, I really need assistance in this because
Right.
I'm struggling, and I want to be the best person that I can be for the person that I'm caring
Right.
for." When you look at my grandmother, my goal was to keep her healthy, happy, and safe. Well, the healthy part I really didn't have a lot of control about. So keep her as healthy as she could be, and happy and safe. And that's really what the goal began to be, is not heal her, because we knew that healing wasn't going to take place, but just to walk with her and to guide her on where she was going.
And how was your grandmother's faith when she was going through this? I mean, were you able to help her realize that God is with you even though, you're struggling?
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing, is that she actually helped me see it more than me helping her.
There's a little miracle going on.
She has a she was actually raised Baptist and came over to the Catholic faith, and she had such a strong devotion to Jesus. It was really, really outstanding. And so when we knew that things were turning and that she was resolving herself to where she was heading, and that was to be in heaven with Jesus, she actually stated to me, I just want you to know that the Master's coming.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was kind of taken back, and I thought to myself, okay. And being human, you want to say, what do you mean by that? And she kept reminding me throughout the month,
Okay.
I'm going to be leaving.
Okay.
And so during that time,
Grandma.
because
What a blessing.
she really was, because a lot of her guiding that I asked her for, a lot of that came from my own personal discernment, because
Right.
that's where she would guide me. She wouldn't answer the question. She would guide me by saying, I want you to think and pray about that for a while,
Oh, my.
because I think you'll find the answer.
It sounds like your grandmother was truly a vehicle for Jesus to reach you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about caregiving, is that sometimes when we think we're so busy taking care of other people's physical,
Right.
we realize that they're actually taking care of our souls. And that's exactly what she did.
That is an amazing thing to
And
say.
what a
Wow.
blessing, what a gift she gave to you,
Yes.
and to everyone
Yes.
else who was around. Now, I am curious, as you were moving her, bringing her into your life, relationships change. Can you talk a little bit about what happened during the course of this time that you spent together? What happened in your relationship with her?
It was actually very miraculous, and it's it's a wonderful experience that I went through. My grandmother was known for being a very strong-willed lady, and I say that, I love
Maybe
you,
it's a
Grandma,
privilege of older
but a
women.
very strong-willed lady, and so she would be very strong in her decisions and very independent in what she did, and she was very, I'm going to do it myself, and this is the way I'm going to do it, and this is the way it's going to be. And interestingly enough, as the time changed over of me taking over more responsibilities for her, that shifted. So all of a sudden she was saying, I want you to do something for me.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I need you to handle this for me. And so that was huge
that was like
for her.
transformation, right?
There was a complete transformation, because that trust had shifted over, and
Right.
she said, I trust you enough to take care of me. And that, again, is another gift that she
Yes.
gave me.
That's
to be
huge
able
in
to say,
caregiving.
not only are you taking care of my soul when I'm supposed to be taking care of you, but now you're giving me the opportunity to be trusted so much that you're giving me this chance to show others that you really are a lovely woman and you're a beautiful person to be around.
What a
So-
story.
Yeah.
Deb, I wanted to ask, there must be situations where it isn't always so peaceful, that the person dying may be rebellious or not nice. What, have you encountered some of those situations?
Actually, my grandfather had that kind of
Really?
of situation, and what's really hard is how that affects the caregiver and the rest of the family. And then you start to see other dysfunctions, basically, that come out of that, because we're all human and we all kind of default back to what's at our core. And meaning by that, you know, we sometimes are fearful, we sometimes are anxious, we're sometimes, you know, worried. And we can carry that out when we're not getting that sort of grace that you received through this calm and peace and serenity. And in that situation with my grandfather, and I've heard this from others, a lot of it has to do then with, as an individual, trying to find a way to reconnect with God yourself. And then looking through the power of touch to help that person, especially when they're angry. They don't necessarily hear you, but what they can do is they can feel you. The Holy Spirit is present in so much more than just our words.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
You know, Nanci, I know that while you were taking care of your grandmother, you said you were also raising your family, and you know, and sometimes, you know, the cross comes in multiple ways, and I know that it was like converging over you. Why don't you share your story?
So when we were getting ready to move her from one facility to the next, during that time, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, but it had metastasized throughout her chest. And so that was a bit of a struggle to try and figure out, how am I going to take care of all these people? In addition to that, my little guy, my youngest child, was diagnosed with having autism. And so we had already been working with that for quite some time, and we just didn't have anything formal, but it was still something that we had to deal with. And it was a bit of a struggle trying to get ourselves in the right state of mind, because you know, you do have those moments, and this is actually where grandmother did very well for my soul, and that is, you know, I'd wheel her out to the garden outside, and by that time there weren't a lot of words being said between us, but just when you were talking about that touch, that's exactly what we had experienced. And just sitting there with her in the garden, looking at the flowers, looking at the butterflies, not saying a word, knowing that both of us were praying at the same time. I knew she was praying, you know, and so those are the moments that brought me back into refreshing me enough to say, okay, I can come at this. And I have a wonderful support system. While my daughter was having issues, my mother had stepped in and helped out. And this is her mother-in-law. And so, you know, that she stepped in and helped out. And I mean, there's just so many other people that actually helped me to reconnect and to make sure that I refreshed my soul so that I could be that caregiver that I needed to be.
What is the age of your daughter when this was happening?
I want to say she was 24.
Wow.
Yes,
24.
Very young. So,
could have been 25.
you know, and it seems, you bring that up, and I remember in my own life, I was caring for my mother, and she was 2 weeks out from going home to Jesus, although I didn't know it, but she was very ill. And then my father, you know, he fell and he broke his hip, so he was at one hospital, so I had to bring her home to our house. And then my husband was having chest pain, so he was at another hospital. So I had a parent in one hospital, my husband in another, and my mother upstairs with her oxygen. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table going, Lord, I actually was laughing. I said, you know what? It can't get any worse. I know you're here, but I just need a little grace. And you know, sure enough, it just comes. And I hope that our viewers that are listening and watching this can just say, Lord, I just need a little grace. Nothing big, but just something to get me through, because He's always there.
The magic of what you're doing and what this story is about is that Jesus is involved and the Lord is involved. You're asking the right counselor for some help.
Correct.
You know? So in a case like that, that's amazing. For people who carry the kind of load that you do, we have spiritual counselors at Mayslake Ministry that can definitely help those people who don't have the grace that you have.
The support system. Yes.
Exactly. And I think that, you know, because of Mayslake having that support myself, I think that really brings me peace to know that, you know, I can take that breath and, okay, let's go, God. Let's go. Let's do this together. And
I think society's a little bit more accepting of asking for outside help. I think there are people in my generation, maybe the grandparents' generation, that we will never share our family problems with the rest of the world. But I think that's changing. Thank goodness.
I think so.
It is, and that's one of the reasons why with Mayslake
Right.
we started Nurturing with Grit and Grace, which is a caregiver ministry, and it was to meet people where they are, practically speaking, spiritually nourishing, and like you were saying, sometimes you don't see those blessings when it's happening.
Right.
You maybe see those things later. And there's almost a sense of, with how we're able to reach out to people through Mayslake, is to help maybe cause a little bit of a thought or reflection to be able to see something a little differently, to be grateful. I mean,
Right.
was gratitude an issue for you throughout that process?
I don't know that it was an issue. I think it was definitely one of those things that was a challenge for me at certain times, like when I was lugging things back and
Yeah.
forth,
Yeah.
and when I was, trying to manage the 10 different things I had going. I think that I didn't recognize it as graciously as I probably could have, but I think that I was able to recognize it. And so, in the very beginning of helping her, as I said before, it was a challenge. She was very strong-willed, and she was very outspoken, and she was going to do it the way that she wanted it done. But,
I'm going to die my way.
yeah,
Right.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And she's, there were times when I would leave her home and I would be dialing my mother on that phone, and my mother would hear the story of how grandmother yelled at me again today because I tried to help her tie her shoes or something. So there was that frustration, and at that time I had to remind myself ever so gently, she wants to do it on her own.
I know.
Yes.
Right.
And let her do it on her own. Patience became a wonderful thing
Right.
for me to work on during that time. Gratitude to be able to have this experience was just wonderful.
I remember when my parents were sick and I cared for both of them. I remember thinking at one point, it was like an insight, that, you know what, and my dad was kind of cranky. It was like grandma, okay? My mom was just so submissive, but my dad was a little, he was Irish, okay? And I remember thinking one day that, you know what, they don't want to be this way. At one time, they were productive people, and they want to be who they used to be, and so it's a surrendering for the person you're caring for as well. They need to surrender to God and say, okay, it's never going to be that way, and so whatever we can do as their caregivers to help them reach that plateau,
Right.
Of okay, Lord, this is my next step in life.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard. It's very
And
difficult.
your prayer life was strong? You said that you prayed silently sometimes, but did you ever pray with her?
Oh, well, when we prayed silently, we were also praying together, if
Okay.
that makes any sense. We were holding
does.
hands, we were
Yeah.
being together, and it was absolutely wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And she was just, she gave me that extra oomph to say, you know what, honey, you're doing a good job. And that was the other thing that really was affirming for me, was that she would say, thank you.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, that doesn't
Thank you
happen
for
a lot
taking
in
care of
caregiving.
me.
No,
It doesn't.
And I think that's one of the things that I try to remind myself to say to others. If there is something that I want to emulate, it's making sure that I remind myself to say thank you. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah.
Thank you for, and that's a wonderful gift to have, because it is hard being a caregiver.
Right.
It really
Yeah.
is.
That is so important, and that's a beautiful message. It does a soul good, right?
It does. It does. To-
And maybe those that are watching, and if the person that they're taking care of, their loved one, is not saying thank you, then maybe we as caregivers can say thank you for letting me take care of you.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you for letting me do this. And they might just push you away, but whatever. But you're eventually going to get through to them. Thank you for letting me help you. Thank you for letting me bring dinner. Whatever it is.
That's a great
We're
thought.
not on the journey alone, and caregiving's difficult, but it's being Christ to one another.
And I think one of the challenges is because I am a natural caregiver. That's what's been placed in my heart, and that's what I do. So when I had gotten sick, that was probably one of the best gifts that I had learned, was when I was sick and people had to bring me dinners. I was like, how do you handle this?
How do you receive?
Yes, how do you receive it graciously and not want to, tell them, I don't want you to bring, because I'm the caregiver here.
Right.
That's my job.
Be strong.
Yeah, I've got to be the one.
Yeah.
And so one of my friends said to me, you have to remember this is the gift that your friends are giving to you, and to accept it graciously.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's okay.
Right.
I could do that. I
Isn't
could
that
do it,
amazing?
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So
A
yeah,
lesson to be learned. We
Yes.
give, but then we also have to receive, right?
and be open to it,
Right.
and to be able to say thank you for caring about me so much, because that's really awesome.
And when Grandma died, she was the great grandma to your children.
She was.
How did they respond or react? And were there tears? Was there?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there were tears. I think that for the older children, they didn't have quite the relationship, because she had lived in Las Vegas for quite some time. So while they were growing up, she had been out there. The younger children who I had brought over, because in the morning I would drop off the kids at school and then drive over and then
Okay.
check in on her, make sure her hearing aids were
Right.
in and her eyeglasses were on, and then after school I'd pick them up and then I'd run over there and they would go see Grandma. So they were
Oh.
really taken back by her,
Okay.
by her passing. But they know Grandma's, with us
Jesus,
still. Yeah,
right,
and
I know.
she's with Jesus and she's in heaven and she's happy, and her spirit and her memory still remains within us. And it's really a wonderful opportunity that they had to
Yeah.
see me caring for them, because now
Exactly.
they're pretty good caregivers.
Right.
Yeah,
Nanci,
exactly.
you know what? We could go on
Sorry.
with this conversation forever, but time is not on our side
Oh, I
today.
have at least 5 more questions.
Oh, really? I know. Well, that'll be another episode. But you know what? I do want to tell all of our viewers out there that we have this wonderful book. It's Every Day with Mary, and it's a daily devotional. And so caregivers especially can start their day just by opening its calendar, dated, and just start your day with a little prayer, a little scripture, centering your day on our Blessed Mother, to give you the grace that you need to carry on. It's difficult, but we're not on the journey alone. Jesus is there, Mary is there with us, and all of your friends and family. So on behalf of Mayslake Ministries, I would like to thank Nanci and Deb,
Thank you.
the Village
Thank
of
you.
Addison and Downers Grove, and Comcast Cable TV for the opportunity to join you on your spiritual journey. I hope that something we said today inspired you, or perhaps challenged you, but most of all made you hunger for Jesus in your life. For more information on the many ways that Mayslake Ministries can help you on your spiritual journey, visit our website at mayslakeministries.org or call us at 630-852-9000. We are here for you. Until next time, God bless.